The DIESOL podcast,
Developing innovation in English as a second or other language.
episode 86, interview with Katie McNamara.
Welcome to DIESOL. This is episode 86. We are your hosts. I'm Brent Warner.
And I'm Michelle Reyes.
Welcome back. You weren't back when we did our last recording, were you? No, you weren't.
Was that? No, I was back, but I wasn't back, like
Were
in
you?
my mind.
Oh, you were.
Yeah,
Okay,
we just
I can't
recorded.
remember.
How could you forget?
I have no idea.
The summer slide.
Oh, that's right. We did.
You're already
You were
slipping.
back. Oh my
Already
God.
slip. Wow.
I know. No, it's been a.
But you're leaving.
It's been a rough couple. I'm leaving soon. I'm leaving in like a month. So you're back. I'm packing and prepping to go to Japan.
Wait. So where's all your stuff going? Storage?
It's a great question.
You don't own anything? You're a minimalist?
I'm not a minimalist. Oh my
Can
God.
I come back to
if
California?
you look around here, you would see I'm by far a maximalist.
A hoarder.
But yeah, we're kind of storing in a couple of different places, and so
Cool.
we've got a little storage area up in the hills and a few other things. So
Cool.
it's gonna be it's hard, but my
It'll be worth it.
yeah, it'll be worth it. We're making it work. So there we go. We are getting going. It is summertime. You doing okay? Is it hot over there in Texas? Or are you doing another
Holy
freeze
moly.
wave?
No, it has been over 104 every day. It's humid. Bugs are everywhere. Yeah. So I haven't even been outside today.
All
We
right.
had to work from home today, so it's nice. And I hear you guys are getting like chilly June bloom type weather. My sister was wearing a light jacket, and I was like, "What the heck?"
Yeah.
California?
I've been wearing like light sweatshirts and things like that. So we keep complaining that the summer is not hitting us here. I mean,
It's okay.
complaining.
It's okay.
It's still
When it
Southern
hits you, it's
California.
going to be there till December. So,
Yeah.
Good
Okay. Well, so today, Esol, we're bringing on Katie McNamara. We talked about
Yeah.
bringing her on. I talked to you a long time ago
Yeah.
about it, and
Yeah.
then every time Katie speaks, it's like I just want to shut up and listen to her talk. And so and then we were in a conference together the other day, or a couple weeks ago, and Katie's like, "Well, let's talk and let's chat." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, like we can actually make it work." And so here we are. We've got Katie McNamara. She serves as a teacher librarian at a public high school in California, director of the teacher librarian program at Fresno Pacific University, and various EDU boards. She's a Google certified innovator and AASL Tech Troubadour. She served as president of the California School Library Association from 2020 and 2021, and Katie has authored contributing chapters and published many journal articles. Won numerous awards for being innovative and sharing content, and she enjoys learning, empowering teachers to inspire student learning, and frequently sharing her expertise as a national and global presenter. She is also a proud boy mom. You can connect with her on Twitter at Katie J. McNamara, and we will have links to that all later on. But let's get into talking. Katie, how are you?
Great. I'm a little jealous because Central California is its own weather system, and there's definitely no sweatshirts of any weight going on here right now. We're not at the hundreds yet, so I'm like grateful for that. But yeah.
Yeah. This is like, I have this like idyllic life in like coastal Southern California. And so I just almost never think about weather. And then like with the tiniest little bit, and we're like, oh, what are we going to do about it here? But the truth is, like, you drive anywhere else and then you have to deal with the reality. I was out in Joshua Tree a couple days ago, and it was warmer than it was here. But but we are glad to have you here with us today. So Katie,
I'm glad being here.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. So Katie, we wanted to talk, we have a lot of different things we could talk about here, but we kind of started off with the idea of talking, well, I guess let's just start with let's start with the elephant in the room, which is the term ELLs, because you're like, I want to talk about that term. And so I said, all right, let's talk about it.
let's do it.
We mention it sometimes. It's a problematic term, and every term that we have for it, it tends to be problematic in some ways. But I am interested to hear what your take is on it, and what your suggestion is for our terminology in the field.
Oh, okay. So I just feel like it's punitive. And if we look at our school systems, it is punitive because we basically have said there's one language that, oh my goodness, you have to be amazing at. Never mind that, like, I don't know if you've experienced this, but I've been teaching since, the 1900s, just not like from the 1920s. And I've had white kids that aren't very good at English, but they're not stuck in 2 English classes. They're not losing their electives like crazy. And then we have sometimes these wicked smart people that have immigrated. However, it doesn't matter how they got here. They're here. They're still like wicked smart. They just don't have English fine tuned. And so we're telling them by this label, so labeling already wrong, but then the label is also a punitive and also a hierarchical one, saying they're not good enough. Like, wait. But we want them to get all happy in these classes and think like, yes, I want to do this for you. And you've already told me I'm less than. Like, that dynamic just doesn't really work.
Yeah. So this is something we talk about sometimes, and it's very tricky when you're in the field, because you're also like, you're trying to do this work to help the students out, right? And you're saying, hey, we want to make sure that you are caught up and that you are able to do all of these things, and then there are these conversations too, like what you're talking about here. And so I still haven't found a good solution. I'm not sure if you have an approach to fixing that or dealing with it that you've thought about.
Well, I think let's celebrate biliteracy. I think that would be amazing right there. Whatever your background is, like everyone should be bilingual. There's countries that's basics of what they do from the beginning, and it's not this one end all be all. So if we embrace that, and even when I'm mostly at high school with my students I'm dealing with during the day. So if I find anyone that knows their language, oh my gosh, here, read this book. And sometimes it's sad. I think I'm insulting them, like that they can't read the English book. Like, oh, no, honey, not at all. I don't want you to lose the skill. If you are fluent in another language, the world is yours. Like, seriously. And I make sure I get cool books too, not like just old stuff in a different language. So going back to celebrating it, why don't we celebrate that they're emerging dual language students? Like, that's kind of cool. The emphasis on dual languages, not that they're having to replace one with another to be successful.
Yeah, the emerging bilinguals is or multi. I don't know if I've heard anyone say emerging multilinguals. Have you, Esol?
No, but what's interesting is, again, I just came back from Taiwan, and my students were learning English was their third language. They were learning at the same time they're learning English. They're also learning Spanish. And it was interesting because they would switch back and forth, and I just thought, whoa, what a change. And the books they're reading are in Spanish, and the songs they're listening to are in Spanish. And so I just thought it was rather interesting that they have that concept.
And Esol,
no, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I don't want to call you out on this, but you've talked about it enough that I think you're comfortable with it. So in your own experience as an EL emerging bilingual, you're not emerging by any means, but your own experience coming into the country and learning to speak and all that, when you were going through that system and going through that process, I know we're talking.
Yeah,
5 years ago
just
when you were a child.
Just say it. Don't walk around it. Just
no. I'm just not trying to. I'm just saying, like, in the 90s or whatever it was for when you were dealing with it, I think those conversations didn't exist as much, maybe. But I'm wondering if you felt that as a language learner, as an ELL for yourself too.
Yes, and I felt, and I when Katie says that it's like a less than or a hierarchical system, absolutely, because I knew right away that I was in the other group, the group that got the English I was the pull-out system that they had at the time, and I knew that I was going to be missing history, and I was missing one more, science. So guess where my grades failed? History and science. And so once I had a handle on the language, and then I moved on to high school, and I could do things, I just wasn't interested in history or science as much, because I was always just used to not knowing what other kids knew. And I just remember feeling like, oh, maybe I'm just not good at this. But I wasn't, because later I realized in college I could do exactly the same thing. So I actually never thought about how others might feel. This is the first time I'm thinking of where my students may feel that, because I certainly felt it. And I just, I was always secretly angry that I didn't do well in history because of that. And it wasn't until my later years when I realized, no, I actually like history and I actually like this, but I just didn't get that piece. And it was because of my English pullout program.
That kind of breaks my heart to hear you say
that. I'm saying that right now. I'm thinking that right now. I'm like, oh, yeah.
Well, this ties in, Katie, I think, and so you said one of the things that you'd like to talk about is this idea of this talent gap and belief gap, and so can you share a little bit about what that means? And I think I'm guessing it kind of links into this exact conversation here. So,
well, one does. Hopefully, the other one doesn't so much. So, talent gap is what we're experiencing. I'm pretty sure it's nationwide. Just the influx of new teachers that have had no teaching experience, like not even substitute teaching. In California, not that I agree with it or don't, they get their bachelor's. They still had no exposure to teaching. Other states, you can get a degree to be a teacher as your bachelor's, but it's not that way in California. And yet in California, we have people with a bachelor's now teaching. And in some of the schools I'm looking at, half of the teachers are at that level. And that's just kind of scary, because when you look at even at a campus, if you can't even like one-to-one mentor a teacher, never mind, that's a lot to put on someone, and not everyone that can teach well can mentor well. Right. You do have this talent gap. They don't know anything, never mind just trying to figure out who to go to for copies. There's like basics of teaching that they just don't have. And a lot of them do, at least their heart is there. So at least that aspect is one, but it's tough. And could you imagine a kiddo that's in secondary school, they've got half of their teachers haven't taught before. Oh.
Yeah, we are. Well, and I mean, we're seeing that problem coming up all the time. I mean, every time I go on LinkedIn, it's like another teacher friend of mine, or associate or someone is like looking for jobs outside of teaching. Yep. Like
that's exactly, like, I was about to say that.
Yeah. So, okay. So how do we deal with that then?
So one way is tapping your school teacher librarian. And sadly, though, not every school has that. Some states have done a really good job about enforcing that. Yes, just like you have a teacher in your content areas, you have a principal. A teacher librarian is not something that is optional. It's a pillar at your community. And one of the hats that a teacher librarian wears is that on-site mentor. They are responsible for professional development. They are responsible for co-teaching, for collaboration, for curriculum design and development. So that's an easy way on a campus to go ahead and tap someone that does have expertise, and it's actually their job to share that expertise and provide it in multiple ways, whether it's modeling a lesson, just having the conversations at the back end, doing observational lessons, whether it's the teacher watching them or the other way around and having that debrief. And then the big bonus there is the teacher librarian is still a teacher, so they're not responsible for like evaluations or whatnot. There's no gotcha thing there. It truly is a support role.
Yeah, that's really valuable. And I mean, especially I guess as we have more and more under experienced or less experienced teachers coming into these roles and filling up so many of the classrooms. What do you, when you step up and start talking to these people, what's the first conversation that you normally have with them?
Well, what I'd love to do ideally is I go to their classroom. So I'm already taking the time to go to their space, not while they're teaching class. After school, lunch, sometime, I'm going to their space and just having a casual conversation. And wherever it goes, it goes. If the teacher wants to start with education, fine, but I never insist on that. I really make a big deal about getting them comfortable with me and building that relationship. I really care about them, not just how they're teaching our students, but them as an individual. And I want them to have that comfort with me. I'm like, okay, how do I get that across? And it's just doing a check-in with them, like we do with our students, do that check-in with the teacher. So, hey, how's everything going? And everything, they might tell me something that's going on with their cat. Like they might tell me something that's going on with the classroom. It could be anywhere. And then I can segue into, so what are you looking forward to teaching? So I'm also controlling the conversation in a positive light, not just, okay, what are you dreading doing? Because I don't want to start that way. You know, I can get there later, but let's focus on the positives. What are we doing? Like, okay, so what's your process of how are you going to get kids engaged? What are you thinking about doing to get them real excited? How are we going to help each student personalize this? So ask these different questions that apply to any lesson in the world, but still getting across the kids need to think, they need to be creative, they need to produce.
Yeah, I love that. So I like the idea of starting with this positive mindset, or going into it with, I don't know if that's the right term, but what are your goals? What are you trying? What are you trying to get to? Yeah. And then, you know, for this audience too, I'm interested to know like what the new teachers think about, or what experience they have in, and we'll use for today, we'll stick with emergent bilinguals, or emergent multilinguals. But, yeah, I do like that. But so what do people coming into classes, especially in California, because we've got such a high percentage of students who fall into this category, right? Are they trained? Are they prepared to deal with students who are learning language, or are developing, or are they coming in with like, oh, I never even thought about that until I stepped into the first day of class? I'm curious about that, the new cohort of teachers.
Right. So new cohort without teacher training, it would be like, no, they didn't think about it unless it's a lived experience for them. And I'm not trying to like dismiss any group, but if the more white someone is, the less likely they have experience with this, whether it's themselves or their circle.
Sure.
So they don't even have those conversations through proximity with someone like, oh, hey, that made you feel, oh, I remember how my friend felt and it was horrible. Some do. And then it's just like, even if you've had tons of experience, the yuckier your life has been, the more compassion you usually have for the students, which is a horrible paradox, but it's true. Like, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. That so we are seeing then teachers are coming in and maybe not prepared to deal with their own student population, right? I guess that's where we're seeing major problems.
Right. In California, I forgot what year, but like they let go of, what was it? The CLAD. There were requirements that
the
you
CLAD
had.
and the B CLAD. I have a B. I guess I had a B CLAD.
Yeah, there's something you have to do now, but then they let go of the more strict requirements, and I don't know.
Wow,
interesting.
Interesting.
Okay.
That is interesting.
Yeah, because I mean, it seems like it's such an important thing to like understand who you're, who you're working with every single day for the rest of your career, and kind of recognizing that a giant majority of those students are that you would be unaware of the needs for them can be.
And simply taking a district training doesn't necessarily mean you can do it, because that's how some of the teachers who had been grandfathered into the whole CLAD and B CLAD requirement. Yeah.
And that opens up big things, like even that one day where you went to a half-day district training of being anti-biased, poof, you're cured. Like, no, it doesn't work.
Well, the thing is, it's interesting, and I'm kind of shocked to hear about it. I've been gone from California for 5 years, and I've been gone from teaching K through 12 from, since 2008. Yeah.
Now, I do have to throw a caveat, though, because I got my credential many, many moons ago. So maybe the requirement is gone because it's embedded in the credentialing process. Yeah. We can cross our fingers for that. But then still, these that just have their bachelor's, they haven't had any of those courses.
Yeah. And I just think, a lot of them, what has helped me, or as a brand new teacher in that day, because I work with adults, but what helped me more than my master's TESOL program, I don't want to throw shade at my master's TESOL program, but it really was my credential, because we had all the applications and all the strategies and less of the theory and less of that. That was it. That was one of the single factor that I could see made a difference between some of my colleagues in teaching higher ed. I had so many strategies because they do work across groups. They're language learners. Interesting.
So it's wild. I love that you brought that up, because those good strategies are good strategies no matter what. So I used to do a training for the district, and it was for everyone. And we get low enrollment. Like the county was mad. And so we just repackaged it. And so this week it would be like, okay, writing strategies for GATE students, and we had a packed house. The next week it was reading strategies for ELL students, packed house. Guess what? It was the same.
Yeah, it's the same. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. I say some of the strategies I had for my kindergartners, they work so well with adults.
Oh, yeah.
And I tell my adults and they do not believe me. And I don't mean to tell them like I'm belittling you or no, it's just a good strategy. So
yeah, whip out that picture book with your adults and really make the point.
Actually, okay. So speaking of that, Katie, I know that you do a bunch of work around like, having visuals and using visuals to help your students out. And we talk about that, semi-regularly. But I would be really interested in how you're, really how you're helping teachers or in your own case and your own students as well. But like how you're helping people understand better ways to use more visuals to help out in particular, language learners, but any students in general, because I think that point is something that's important, which is the things that we talk about. Like this show, of course, we focus on the emergent bilinguals and the language stuff, but the truth is we do sometimes get people that are teaching other things and they're like, oh, you guys, what you're talking about actually just kind of applies, right, broadly. And so I'd be interested to know how you're how you're bringing those that use of visuals into your classes and to help with the learning process for all students.
So we're very visual creatures, and any way I can make learning easier for the student, yay, but especially on the teacher. And then when it's both of us, it's like, yes, that's what I want to do forever, because here is a very, very important statement. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. School is not a place for young people to watch old people work. So stepping back here, if you're like, okay, I have to teach X, instead of going to a textbook, instead of going online or asking ChatGPT, like, hey, what lesson can I do? Think about, okay, how can I visually make that connection? You always can. It doesn't matter what it is. You can teach the 4 basic reading strategies through visuals at first. You can teach finding evidence through visuals. You can teach propaganda. You can teach a thesis statement through a visual. You can teach everything through visuals as your foundation.
Can you walk us through that a little bit? Like give us an example of one of your favorite examples is fine, but just kind of to understand what would you do? Like what does it mean to say like, hey, we can do this, and there's a lot of ways to get the thinking started and the process started, but like I think sometimes people listen and they're going, yeah, okay, but how, right?
Okay, so let's stick with that thinking, because that seems to be what we complain about the most. They don't think, and then they can't ask questions, and then they don't summarize. Oh my gosh. Okay, so you might have heard of this. We talk about notice, wonder a lot. Would you notice? Would you wonder? Do that with a picture. Okay. And you can do that every day, the entire school year. And kiddos will become masters of generating questions. So that's your inquiry. It's a foundation of research. It's foundation of civil discourse, all kinds of things. And then what they're noticing, now they're summarizing, they're pulling out evidence, they're getting those key details, all those other things we want them to do. And between generating questions and being summative, those standards are cross-curricular. Ooh. And if I had students that came into me and they were masters at inquiry and summarizing, oh my gosh, like that would be the dream.
You know what's coming to my mind, Katie? So again, I just came back from Taiwan, and my students, they're used to memorizing. So the goal was to get them speaking and to get their self-esteem about speaking just higher. And I did pictures. And I know we've heard this lesson in many teaching programs where you take a picture, the student describes it, somebody else is drawing, and then you compare, right? So I did that with a twist. And what I did was, instead of common pictures, I printed out large, weird, crazy photos. So for example, I had like, I don't know, some kind of fantasy art where there was a bird with the head of a pug, standing on someone's hand. And so then I'd say to my students, and these were adults, do you want easy, funny, or weird? Whatever they asked, doesn't matter. I gave them a weird picture. And then you'd see their face contort because they're like, what? But then they'd start out with very simple things like bird, and it might be just a word. And then bird on hand. And then the students would start asking questions. Wait, is a bird on the left hand? On the right hand? Is the bird? And then they got even more complex. Like, does the bird take up half of the page? And if they couldn't say half of the page, they'd say 50%, top 50%. And so eventually I got to creating like questions and collaborating and then reminding each other, no, we asked that already. No, is it facing us? No way. And so that whole process, I know that they had a hard time, but they were able to come up with a picture. And then the surprising part, that's once they compared everybody's photo to the one crazy one, you would get all these really cool images, and we would just post them up because they were actually like little art pictures, and they were funny. They were very, very funny. And then they would start to see that, for example, I had one where it was a man dancing with a woman. The man was wearing a crocodile mask. The woman was wearing a unicorn mask. So whenever the student said mask, the students immediately thought face mask, like from the pandemic. So all of the pictures were inevitably with the face mask. And when that student who was describing would go now and say like, oh, I should have said like a costume. And so that whole language, they generated themselves. I did not, which is it's just interesting and cool.
Yeah.
But I didn't know I was doing all of that you were saying, civil discourse, and they're summarizing.
Right. If you break it down, there's a gazillion standards, which is amazing. And the descriptions you're talking about, paying attention to those little details, that's what makes the difference. So like whatever research project you're doing, no one wants, I'm at high school, so like 200 of the same. Like, no, we're not retrieving. You're not a retriever. Those are cute puppies. And by the time they're sophomores, oh my gosh, they stink. They are not cute anymore. So like, no, I want your individual interpretation on it. So those details, are totally what makes the big impact.
You know what I like about that too is with the notice and wonder part to that is like, because the notice can also show the teacher without having to do any work. It's like, okay, where's your language at? What are you hitting? What are you missing? Right. And then the wonder part can even give them the opportunity. For my students, for sure, they would start asking questions like, how do I say this? How do I, how would I,
another way?
Yeah. How would I grammatically put this together? Like they start asking questions like that. Right. Because then it becomes about their learning, right? It becomes about the things that they want to be able to express, or the things that they want to communicate. And especially when they ask a question, how would I say this? Then it's like, that's the gold star right there, because that's when we start saying, okay, this is something that we can give to you that you want, that's going to be a value for you, not just in the one moment we're talking about it, but because you care enough to ask, then you're going to care enough to pursue it later on as well. So I think there's a lot of that's amazing. I mean, it's such a simple thing, but such a great way to kind of spread out.
And some people think it's just that little thing you do in high school. No, you can replace the words if you want. Evidence and analysis, but please don't do that. Like, don't even say that A word in class if you don't have to. Once you say analysis, they shut down. Yep. And then with both of those too, the other benefit, you wind up finding out what they bring to the table. All of their prior knowledge gets unpacked. So while yes, like Esol mentioned, like starting with a fun or wild, crazy picture, yes. Always make, your content load super light when you're introducing a new strategy or skill. And then as you build, like maybe it's more focused on the content you're trying to get across, or especially like something that's going on, a current event, that background knowledge piece is going to be real important for the teacher to pay attention to, so you know how to build on what next layer you need to bring in if you're wanting to make a connection between this item and another task that you're covering in class.
Awesome. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah. There's so much that I'm not going to be teaching for a year. I'm going on sabbatical, and this is going to be a problem for the
ideas.
Because I always get inspired by ideas that people are bringing up. I'm like, cool, I'm going to bring that in class next week. And I'm like, oh,
and they're not teaching.
Yeah, there is no next week. So I'll hold on to it. The episode will still be available in a year from now. So
I'll be around.
Yeah, I certainly hope so. then Katie, also one of your big areas too is media literacy. So when we were talking in my presentation, the other time you jumped in and shared a lot of great points on like how to, the things that we need to be thinking about with our students for understanding media literacy. I think it's still a very under-recognized, skill set, or like how to, maybe I shouldn't throw out, I'm trying to be careful with my language. You said, don't say analyze. I'm like, how to analyze?
In class, you can say the A word.
Just in class. So like, how to analyze what the media is, what we're presenting with our students, what our students should be expected to understand or learn through the media that they're consuming. And so I know that this is its own whole world, right? Of course. And there's so many different parts, but when you start talking to people about this topic, what are the things that you find that people are underinformed on, or maybe need to learn how to do better to help their students out with media literacy?
Oh, wow. It's a lot. But
no big deal. Just answer with everything, please.
Okay. Let me take a slightly positive spin. So that is because it's a lot that is wrong. And it's with the adults too. Like, I just got a text message. Oh my gosh. So on Venmo, if you guys have not used Venmo, it's how you can pay other people. Like, I'm not saying that it's illegal for what they did, but you give someone else money. Okay. And it gets to their account. Okay. Right. But the little messages that you say for like why that money was given to them, like dinner or whatever, like, yay, it lets the person know what's going on. There's also settings. Do you know that?
Yeah.
Okay. So privacy settings, use those. So I have this screenshot of, it's from a wife to her husband. So you shut the bleep up. And I'm getting it not from the wife, from another friend that has all these messages popping up because an adult chose not to put their privacy settings on. That's a layer of media literacy.
I do find that fascinating.
Oh, yeah. You know what's interesting? I still, even after I've been using Venmo for a long time, and I've been telling my relatives and my friends, hey, I can see your history, because the last message that pops up is something inappropriate, or maybe that they would think maybe they were saying it to be funny.
Yeah.
But if you're a stranger and you don't know their sense of humor.
Yeah. So like early 2000s, I would tell my kids too, because that's when they were on Facebook, like, you got to fix those settings. Like, I can find your address and this and that. And they thought it was crazy that I could, like, well, I can get your address anyway. So I didn't tell them that part. But it was like, no, just because someone asks for this information doesn't mean you give it to them. Like, same thing with your social and your bank account. No, we don't need to do that. So all of those aspects are another layer too of media literacy. So that's some of the hiccup, that media literacy is so broad and people have packaged it on the shelf and put to the side in isolation. Like, underneath that also is digital citizenship, and people have made a package that's just the bow is just be kind online. Like, no, all of that is false, but you've got these teachers that they've been hammered with that concept, and so they think they're good. Or like, you've even got schools that still do this. A police officer comes in one day in September, does a 1-hour assembly lesson, and poof, everyone is media literate. No, that doesn't work either. So my absolute favorite thing with this influx, the language learning models that we're getting with this extra layer of AI, is the importance of media literacy. So everything that people are upset about really comes down to two things. One is a lack of media literacy. So like, please, let's teach that. And that whole bit about fact checking. Like, if people had already been learning that everything online isn't true, that yes, you should check your sources. Yes, lateral reading is real. All of those things, so that it would be no big deal now.
Yeah.
But they're not.
They're not there.
Because my students are now saying, instead of going to Wikipedia, oh, well, let's just ask ChatGPT. Instead of Google, let's just ask ChatGPT. It's like, oh my gosh, but do you know that everything that's on there comes from all the written sources, and it's also not... It's just another funnel.
Yeah. So then you have people upset. It's bias. And you're upset.
Yes.
Like, don't ever get on a computer, because the whole internet is biased. Anything that comes from human beings has a bias. Yeah.
Yeah, so that brings up some interesting things that I was dealing with, because I did bring ChatGPT and the AI stuff into my class, and it was very tricky to kind of have the different levels of students. So I've got students who are, straight first year of college, right? Like 18 years old and maybe not as experienced. And then I've got students who are, in their 40s and 50s, and they're trying to, learn for other purposes and things like that. And so the students who were a little bit older had a lot more critical thinking around what the AI was putting out, right? And they started thinking about all these things. And then the students who were younger had a tendency, and this is not 100% true, and it's not 100% true on either side, but the younger students had a tendency just to go, okay, well, this is what's given to me, this is what's going to work, right? And so then we're having this big issue with students, this is the conversation, is like, how do we start sharing with students that they need to have this this broader perspective, and then in order to analyze or to figure out what's going on inside of here, you have to be able to critically think about it and say like, hey, this works, or I have some level of expertise in order to say whether or not this thing is true or not, or at least maybe I have the skill set to go and research it and figure out that stuff. And then my students were kind of saying, well, then why am I using ChatGPT? Because I have to go and check on it. It's like, well, then you shouldn't be using it at all if you're not really figuring out how, like, if you're not understanding that this is still a give and take, it's not just a take, right? And so that's part of the conversation.
So those students are also then not fact checking the articles they got on large in the internet.
Correct.
So now that you're making this connection to fact check ChatGPT that curated from the articles, but the students hadn't been checking those articles, so then there's that spiral conversation that needs to occur.
Yeah. So then it's about linking that back in for them, because they'll get this whatever information, sometimes it's right and great and sometimes it's not, but they need to be able to recognize that, right, for themselves.
Yes.
Yeah, so I felt like this is a one of the things that my students, and I'm also really interested to hear from you on this one too, Katie, because one small part of the digital citizenship conversation that I do with my students, or I never succeed fully, but inside of Canvas, it has the like upload your picture type of thing. My school doesn't automatically upload pictures for the students. And so I have always kind of gone with the approach, and I might be wrong here, but I've always gone with the approach that is, in our class, when we're working together online, we want to be able to see each other's faces and kind of interact with each other as citizens together. And so please don't put up a picture of a sunflower or a picture of you from 2 miles away and it's just a tiny little dot or something like that. So that when we're reading what you're writing, we can kind of see you and remember, oh, that's the person that I talked to in class or whatever else it is. And so to me, that's always been the approach. But I've also been concerned that it's like, well, I don't want to put my picture up online, or I don't want to do this or that, and that side of things as well. So I'm interested in the interaction between people and how, when they're doing online work or when they're doing, this fully digital thing, what approaches are you taking or talking with students about, as far as them being, good digital neighbors and I don't know if the terminology if you understand what I'm getting at here, but this putting your face forward digitally in the online realm, I guess.
So there's a few things that are going on there. So one, we're in Canvas. It's already this protected atmosphere. That picture is not going out at large. And then you also allow them to select their own picture. So there's all these niceties you've already extended. Now just put your friggin' picture up. You don't have a picture of your cat. That's what serial killers do. You have a picture of you. Sorry, there's any of those that have cat pictures.
I'm gonna steal that line and use it for sure. Oh no.
It's cool. I bring in serial killers all the time. It's because we're not liars. Serial killers are liars. They don't cite their sources. We do. Okay. So yeah, we need that picture because you do want to know who you're interacting with when you're like in a Zoom meeting too. I'm not going to have my camera on when there's like 50 plus people and there's a presentation going, that light coming out my eyeballs. Oh my goodness. It's giving me stress. It's irritating my migraine. It's irritating my ADHD. Like, I don't like it. I don't need it. It's not worth it. So I give myself and I give my students the freedom to go ahead and close it. But then it's like when you are talking or when you're in a small breakout room, if the group the group, not one person, if the group goes ahead and wants cameras on, let's go ahead and do that. But the group could also be just voice. And I'm okay with that too, because it's interacting. Like, I'm not going to say getting on a telephone call, these block computer things we carry around, we can like actually voice chat with people. That's still fine. It's okay to connect that way. Maybe like, I don't want you seeing into my room right now. That's also a different violation. And when we were out on COVID, and sorry guys, I got opinions, those of you that don't know me yet. Don't give opinions by Katie, it's coming. Everyone has different home setups, and expecting or demanding to see their living situation, like, how dare us if we put that on a child?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I can't remember where I saw this from, but I think there was actually a research or a report on this or something like that, but specifically with language learners too, a lot of them are coming in and they're, socioeconomically, at a disadvantage. And so they might be sharing a room with 3 or 4 other people inside of their room. And then people are like crossing back and forth in the background, and, maybe their brother's walking around with their shirt off, or, whatever else it is, like all sorts of crazy things that just happen that are fine in your normal inside life, but now the teacher and everybody else is seeing into that as well, right? And so then you're getting students, again, as they're trying to learn language and learn how to speak, and they're unwilling to speak because they don't want to be seen in that setting, and it's like, this is a vicious cycle that you can really, it can just create endless problems. And then, Michelle, going back to what you were saying earlier, that might take you years to recognize, oh, actually, this is something that I'm interested in, or this is something that I like doing. And I've been stuck with it because of whatever this background setting was that I was living with during this online teaching time, or these classes that I had to take because of whatever needs that I did online. What a fascinating, problematic but interesting thing, right?
One of the classes I visited frequently, this girl that like loved to speak and camera on, I felt inferior. And I'm on the other side of 40, which is a fabulous place to be. But like, I was feeling so inept because she was always from her kitchen. I swear her kitchen was half the size of my house. Like, I am sick of seeing your kitchen. And now I'm like, I don't even care what you're talking about, because you just made me feel like I'm nothing.
Yeah, that's interesting. It can definitely go both ways. Huh. And thought about that side of it too, huh? Sorry, I'm like, which way? It makes you think about so many different things here. I think there's
you've been hiding your kitchen behind that drape you have there.
Well, I mean, I can show you, like, this. It's just because my it's right now folded laundry and my my alarm clock right now, but but the same reason too is like that distraction. I just want to get rid of that, right? So for those listening, which is everybody, when I'm on Zoom, I always have a black curtain behind me that I just hang from the ceiling, and that's just for me to minimize everything, and so that when I'm talking or when I'm sharing, I'm just I don't want to have other distractions as well, and not to mention if my wife comes walking through the back of the room or something like that. So,
and while we're tattling there, I'm in my closet because I know that's best sound quality, and I totally adore these people, so I wanted to make sure it's good quality. But I would not be in my closet with people I don't know, and then my background is not blurred either, because that does stuff to my eyeballs. So it's like there's just a lot of stuff when you think about, okay, this video camera being right at us and giving people access.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we could keep on going, but I think we actually kind of have to get towards wrapping up. So we're I know, Katie, we're gonna have to bring you back on again and get into some deep dives on some of these, but there's just so many little interesting things to think about here. So we're gonna jump over to our fun finds.
All right, so it is time for our fun finds, and this time around I have just a plain old squish toy. It's those foam slow rise squish toys, but I chose one in the shape of a s'more. If you've been following me on social media, you saw that I posted on Instagram a picture of a popcorn squish toy, and the popcorn was what I used to get my very, very, very shy Chinese speakers to want to speak more English. And all we would do is I would say, all right, it's popcorn time. And we would get in a circle and I'd toss it. And as soon as they caught it, they would squeeze it. And then the student who was holding it, yes, they would be the one that was supposed to talk. But then suddenly the others would want to talk. So it had the opposite effect. But by the end of the time that I was there, that I spent there, they would always ask for popcorn time. So I'm going to try that strategy here with a s'more, and I'm going to call it s'more time for like s'more English, and I'll explain to them. So it's just a cheap $8 toy, but it's squishy. And of course, for those students who want to, they can get rid of their stress while they're, speaking. It's pretty good. It'll get very grimy and you have to toss it out after a few weeks.
I like that. Let's talk some more. Yeah. Awesome. Mine is I'm going high end today.
You're being the bougie one.
Yeah, it is the bougie one. So I bought myself a new camera for going to Japan, and so I got a Canon R7, which is a pretty nice, it's not the total pro, but it's that kind of that good mid-level camera that kind of covers everything. So it does good photography. You could use it for vlogging and video stuff too. And the last time I bought a new camera body was probably 15 or 16 years ago. So that was an old digital camera. It's in much need.
So you have a lot to catch up on.
Yeah, it's like, it's kind of the same, but it's like, oh my God, there's so much interesting stuff going on inside of this camera. So I will be taking pictures and taking videos, and someone said I should become so part of the plan in Japan is to possibly, if we can work it out, is to get a camper van and travel around Japan. And so one of my wife's friends is like, "Oh, you should start doing some vlogging, some video, make a YouTube channel and get a debut and start becoming famous for traveling around Japan." I'm like, I don't.
Just be an Instagram blogger and blog your.
Anyways, I have a nice camera that I can use to do it. So Canon R7, I think it's a nice, well-rounded. It's not cheap, but it's if you're looking for having a good camera that will last for hopefully another 10 years, then that's the one that I went with. So, Katie, what is your fun find?
Two?
Oh, you got two, yeah.
Yeah, I would love to share too. Okay, so had a rough morning, blah, 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 trying to find something for out of town trip, and I can't find anything. It's okay though. I found this bracelet though, and it's so adorable. It's major blinged out, like bougie-ish, I guess, because it's all these fake rhinestones. Yeah, and it's not basic because no, don't have time for that. And I'm buying it though, and the gal at the register is like, "Oh, what's the event?" I'm like, breathe. Don't just snap our head off. It's an educational moment. There doesn't have to be an event. There doesn't have to be anything special. It's me. I like it. Me. I'm the event. I'm the occasion. So just buy.
Did you just spread your arms wide and you say, "Here it is"?
It's me. Okay, and then my second find is, okay, so purple, for those of you that don't know this fact, purple is the best color in the world. It's my favorite
Agree.
color. It's okay.
Agree.
Okay, yes. Okay, I'm okay saying it's the best because it's the one color that complements every single skin tone. Yeah. Okay. So there are jacaranda trees.
Yes.
That
yes.
are low maintenance, so score plus purple blooms.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Gorgeous.
Yes.
And I just got two. So I'm super excited.
They are beautiful.
Okay, so you've got to come over for a barbecue in my backyard. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That is actually a great one. I mean, I'm very into the bracelet, don't get me wrong, but the jacaranda, the blooming of the jacarandas is one of my favorite times in Southern California.
Agreed.
My office, they bloomed late this year, I think, because normally I see it like during kind of grading and everything, and then this year they hadn't bloomed yet during the school semester. So maybe I have to go back and check, but I feel like I always saw them.
Yeah, the weather systems just kind of shifted this year. That's probably it.
But they are absolutely
climate
beautiful.
Change.
It's a great find. Awesome. So we've got stuffy s'mores under the jacaranda trees and taking beautiful pictures of them all together.
There you go.
Yes, love it.
All right, awesome. We're gonna jump out.
Leave us a review or give us some feedback. We're on all social medias. You can tag us, and Yeah.
And yeah,
that's it.
we're the best promoters of the show. We're out there somewhere. We do have a Patreon. We have a couple things going. So show notes for the episode at diesel.org/86, the number 86, and of course you can listen to us at VoiceEd Canada as well. And again, the Twitter conversation continues, but here we are at DiesolPod, so DIESOLPOD, and I am at Brent G. Warner.
You can follow me while I'm still on Twitter at ixy_pixie. That's IXY_PIXY.
And Katie, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter as well, and most socials. I just got on Blue Sky. I don't know
much about it.
I'm on Blue Sky.
I didn't get in.
Okay, I'll get a thing. I'll share it to you. So I'm jumping on all of them, so I have my handle.
Yeah. And I just let them sit, right? But I haven't gotten my invite.
If it takes off, okay, it's coming. We'll hook you up. Someone will.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm at Katie KATIE J McNamara MCNAMARA.
All right. Whichever social media you're on, search for it there. And I do the same thing, Katie. I do Brent G. Warner pretty much. Like if I can grab it somewhere, I do, and I just let it sit. Yeah. Uh-huh.
So sad thing, I'm not on Insta yet because someone has my name. Like, I know. So I've been like waiting for her to die or something.
But you could be like the real Katie.
You're waiting. I think. Well, we'll leave that conversation to another day.
In French, thank you is merci. Merci for tuning in to our DIESOL podcast.
Thanks so much, everybody. Have a good one. See you later.
Thank you, Katie.
Thank you, Katie.
Thank you.